America, and welcome to Between Two Ideologues, the Fox News show that situates one unfortunate guest between two raving ideologues. Today's guest is a libertarian gubernatorial candidate, and it's on the tip of my tongue. His name is Bob Sax. Sorry, libertarian gubernatorial candidate.
Dan Wagner.
Dan Wagner, yes. Dan Wagner, the libertarian candidate for Virginia governor, with us today. Welcome to the program, Mr. Wagner. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. It's been a pleasure to coordinate with your people and get this set up.
Mutually beneficial process. All right, Mr. Wagner. To start out, we'd like you to summarize what you think the most important issues on this campaign are.
The most important issues on this campaign, to me at least, are women's rights and tax cuts. I believe that it is of utmost importance that we have a society where we can treat everyone equally, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, and whatnot, especially gender.
Can I just pause you for a second there? Because I was recently previewing one of your videos, and I noticed as you began to talk about women's choices, your video panned over a set of clothing. Is this your idea of talking about equality, Mr. Wagner?
I'm not sure I totally understand your question.
Okay, I can repeat it for you. In one of your videos, you were talking about your various issues, and at one point you stop and you say something about women's choices, and the camera goes over a screen of a woman's clothing shop.
Why don't we cut to that clip right now?
Virginia's beauty with. And of course, one of my biggest goals as men, we must not stop fighting.
Well, you see, what we have there is an example of
Your
women.
deep inset misogyny,
What
Mr.
my
Wagner?
liberal colleagues might call chauvinism.
No, what that is an example of women's business. That is a business run by women and started by women.
Don't you think the imagery of
Personally,
presenting...
I don't really see anything wrong with putting a clothing store.
I'll just set aside the opinions of my two male colleagues for a moment here, but we can continue
why
on.
don't you do that? Because I think only a hypersensitive individual would really take issue with what was in Mr. Wagner's video, frankly. I've watched it myself. I didn't find it particularly objectionable. Okay, but I think we interrupted him in the middle of
Is that your opinion as a woman?
That's just my opinion as a person who looks at a video and doesn't see anything particularly shocking about it. That's all. Mr. Wagner, you were saying, sir. Apologize.
Yes, well, obviously we see women as completely equal to men, and it seems kind of prehistoric to think otherwise.
Yes, I'd have to agree.
Would you agree?
I think Maida is
Absolutely.
blowing something entirely out of proportion here.
We can feel free to move on.
But women,
away.
yes, you believe in women's rights. So do I. So do we all. Tax cuts was your other thing,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken.
Tax cuts. We believe in a solid, flat rate of tax cuts all around for rich, poor, middle class, everyone. Because we believe that if there's more money being brought into the government to then be spent recklessly,
You're gonna tax everybody, including like people who don't
No, I
learn
think
a
he's gonna
living
not
wage.
tax everybody.
Oh, he's not going to tax everybody. Sorry.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's.
Sorry.
what we are saying is we are going to tax everyone at a flat rate. So for someone who makes less money, they will pay less money. For someone who makes more money, they will pay more money.
Are you serious? You actually favor a flat tax?
Yes.
That's gonna
You
happen?
take this one.
Okay. That would be awesome. That seems really unrealistic. Can you?
What's your plan
Do you
for a
wanna
flat
dispute
tax
that?
that wouldn't completely bankrupt the government?
We don't believe in a big government. We want to keep the government as small and as little as possible and get out of everyone's affairs. Everyone has the right to make their own money, spend it as they please, lose it as they please, and make it back as they please.
Well, I mean, we know that you're not a real party and barely a real candidate, so
Excuse
I mean...
me. Excuse me, the Libertarian Party is a real party.
I mean, yes.
I
in
mean,
the
you're,
strict
but
sense
like,
of the word.
I
It
mean,
is a
I
real party.
suppose, but I mean...
Undeniably. Just like the Green Party's a real party, the Populist Party was a real party at one point.
Then what would you define as a party, Mr. Owen?
I mean, do you honestly think it's realistic?
definitely a
Do you
party.
honestly think that you have a real
I
prospect
just
of
think
being elected?
at a certain point, there's a time in which you're just throwing ideas out because they're intellectually interesting. And I understand you're a very intelligent man. Your education proves that. But at a certain point, you're just putting policy ideas out because to get a reaction almost. And I don't necessarily see how that translates into the language of policies and laws and cold facts.
And in terms of the election, it honestly just seems that you play spoiler to the other two candidates by taking some votes from either side. So what would you say to those who, like Malloy and I, don't seem to take your candidacy all that seriously?
I see. Well, what I'd have to say to that is that it's come to a time in Virginia's history and its history of politics in particular that we see a government that is overwrought with tons and tons of bureaucracies and positions and firms. And you see, the government is overwrought with politics and
it's overwrought with politics.
Okay, we're not here to criticize Mr. Wagner's vocabulary. We're here to hear about his policies.
I apologize. Let's continue.
Let Roloff alone. Thank you.
No, I actually stand by that. The politics of minutia that are completely irrelevant to the actual functioning of a government are plaguing our system. But anyway, going on, we have too many things that are clustering in the government that are completely unnecessary, that we need to eradicate and push more funding into the people.
Could you name some programs that you would slash if elected governor of Virginia?
I would slash funding for education, but I'll get back to that. I would also slash funding for the
benefits
Did Mr. Wagner have a seizure? Apparently, Mr. Wagner's not entirely sure what he's going to cut. And he's
education. Are you aware of how little this
he
state already?
He wants to
my
cut
God.
education. I'm summarizing.
Okay,
And
well,
I want to ask him about that because,
well,
frankly,
education is something that's already suffering in this state, so I'm not
Mr.
really sure why you
Saxeter,
want.
your plan, your plan for education struck me as somewhat embryonic. You don't seem to have any actual policy suggestions. You merely said that education should be something like in the hands of the taxpayers or some
Wait,
such.
and redistribute
The thing with
money
education
Yeah, talk about
is
education.
we believe that no further funding should be given to schools that are continuing to provide high test scores and
So you want to give funding
So you
to
want
schools
to
that
punish
don't-
the schools
no,
that do
it's not
well?
punishment. It's not punishment if you're not taking away. It's punishment if you are actively taking away. But if you are allowing them to keep what they have and then continue on with that, you're simply supplying them what they have. By cutting, I mean that we are going to stop giving money to schools that are we find redundant in their activities and their programs that are.
Mr. Wagner, schools across this nation, especially in Virginia, are suffering from
Mr. Wagner,
cuts.
as a man of the free market, surely you understand the principle of incentivization.
Are you really talking about the free market when talking about public education, Malloy?
Mr. Wagner,
You're applying
I
free market
appreciate-
principles
I appreciate the fact
to
that
public
you
school.
want to
Are you
further
aware of the fact that
privatize
you are
public
seated
education,
in a public
but
school at this moment?
Unfortunately, incentivization is a real concern, Maida, and I don't think I think
Jesus Christ, can we
you should
stop?
agree with me here. But your excessive your excessive liberal principledness prevents you from seeing the plain and universally discoverable truth of my argument. So I just want you to think a little bit.
Yes,
before
poor
we
kids,
move on.
poor kids, and people who can't afford to pay tuition to school. Those people suck.
That's
Agreed.
how we incentivize. We don't say people suck.
So why do you hate poor people, Mr. Wagner?
I don't hate poor people. I want them to have all the money they want. Didn't I say I was going to cut taxes?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Didn't you also say you were going to cut benefit programs, though? I mean, that's really the heart of what helps the poor in this country. That was a very peculiar look, Mr. Wagner.
I'm not sure I totally agree with you.
I think, yeah.
I believe that if we are allowing for people to have their money, then we're not going to need to worry so much about the safety net. If as long as there is
what
a
I think Mr. Wagner means is that charity is best left to private individuals.
Oh my
not to an
god.
overreaching government.
Of course, that could be said.
I'd like to talk about Mr. Wagner's personal
Can we just come back
background,
to women's
because
rights for a second?
although-
No, let's talk.
Although I would first like to ask Maida to shut up. Secondly,
Wow.
I'd like to thank you, Maida. Mr. Wagner's personal story, because honestly, you're educated in what? Particle theory and
Particle physics.
My fault. And what was it? No, economics. Was what it
Economic
was.
theory.
Okay, economic theory. So
Did
you're
you
in
just
the
show
ivory
contempt
tower.
for the fact that he has a degree from about particle
No,
theory?
no, I'm.
See,
I'm
this is just
extremely
particle
impressed.
physics. Republicans and their contempt for science. What can we say, people? What
Contempt
can
for
we
science.
see?
Okay. But
Aren't we gonna get to his?
particle theory. Yes,
Just let
I'm
him-
extremely impressed.
Can you share
that
with
you have
us
a
some of
degree
your
in
story?
particle theory.
Some of my story.
Malloy, you shut up now.
Some of your story.
He's been fine. Yes, I grew up in Farmville, Virginia. As you know, it's a very tiny town. Not much going on socially, but it is a strong town with a strong community. I grew up there on a farm with my several brothers and sisters and family, and I left it to go to Massachusetts to MIT, and there studied economic theory and particle physics.
Right.
How
You
nice
did.
for you.
That was undergraduate. Rather?
Yes.
Okay. And what makes you think that, as someone with extensive training,
Were you a
in
business
science-
owner prior to this? What was your experience as a?
Yeah.
Well,
prior
I worked
to
on a
this?
farm, and I had to frequently count crates, count bushels. What was the question?
Just like tell us about
Why
yourself.
why are you fit to be Virginia governor, given that your entire labor experience involves working on a farm and that you don't have any education or training for the job?
So, because as you've clearly stated, you never owned a business or were part of anything before
Or actually
this,
have any political experience,
It's
or
whatsoever.
were a lawyer like every other politician,
or even part of a party that's ever held office
I see myself
of the
fit.
governorship
or
here.
actually hold a reasonable ideology. No. Sorry.
I see myself fit to govern due to my high education and simply from the abundance of in control in this state.
I'm sorry, you think you're fit to govern because you sought higher education?
I mean, he has an undergraduate degree. It's not exactly
Higher
a lot of
education.
people have undergraduate degrees. Let's be real. Okay.
Wait, what?
But
What?
but sorry, what was the last thing you said? Something the abundance in the state or something? I didn't quite catch that.
The abundance of in control in the state.
The abundance of.
Sorry, should I dumb it down for you?
If you would, please. I'm afraid we're not all super erudite here.
As me and Malloy have clearly never attended college, as you have.
So the abundance of in control. I'm not making sense of that phrase. Would you
What is the?
speak to me like an idiot, Mr. Wagner?
Yes, Malloy here is no savant.
There is an abundance of irresponsibility.
Irresponsibility. I thought you said in control. I must have been mistaken.
So,
Yes.
are you arguing with the lack of control Richmond has, or the lack of what was it that you said just now?
He said there's an abundance of irresponsibility, and that makes him fit to govern. I don't follow the reasoning at all.
What makes you
I'm sorry, I'm an
responsible that
idiot.
you worked on a farm?
And also, why does this like you're like constructing this meta narrative where there's this like dark like maelstrom of irresponsibility, and you're like the messiah, and like you're like the chosen one to like solve the irresponsibility. I don't understand where that comes from. It doesn't make sense to me.
I see. Well, I guess the best way to explain it is that there are very certain problems with this state and with this country as a whole.
What certain
I struggle
problems?
to
Will you
disagree.
please let
There
us
are
know
definitely
what these
very certain
problems
problems
are
with
so
the
we
state.
can engage on the issues here?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's let him continue, shall we? Maida?
Yeah, so the
Shove
problems
off, Malloy.
the problems extremely align socially in my opinion, but as well as economically. There is a complete downturn of employment, and there is a strong
What if we just get up and walk away in frustration?
Frankly,
Like,
I think you're right. That unemployment needs to be solved by lowering taxes.
the fairy tale
Um,
solution, ladies and gentlemen.
Because that's gonna fix problems, the trickle down effect and such things.
How are you saying that with
you
a
know,
straight
letting-
face at this
letting-
moment,
letting wealthy
Malloy?
investors actually invest create jobs, hire people. That's
all
that
perfectly
seems
logical
very
because
reasonable.
ruthless capitalism definitely takes care of the poor and disadvantaged.
Yeah, I mean, it's a system of incentivization, just like the one we were talking about with education. To be honest,
Can we please stop?
I really
don't
like
even wanna
like the flat tax. I do because
Honestly,
I
wait,
think,
no,
I
wait,
think
stop.
Mr. Sagstetter. Yeah, I do.
Are we
999.
999?
Back on
There
the
you
cane
have
chain,
it.
Maida.
I was waiting for that. I wanted to say it though.
I like it a lot. Okay, so Mr. Sagstetter.
Wait, what was the guy's name who was just sitting in between us?
I think it was Sagstetter.
No, there was something about rhyming with money bags.
Oh shoot. Yeah, those posters that they had to take down.
Oh right,
nobody
because they had
really cares.
contained inappropriate language.
Nobody really cares. Let's talk about the flat tax. The flat tax. Giving business owners incentives to create jobs. You have to admit it.
An economist did an assessment of the flat tax, and it's just wildly unrealistic.
Oh, an economist. There's how many economists are there in the United States? There must be like hundreds of thousands. I mean,
just
just because you seem to
999.
you like idealize you elevate these science to this like godlike status.
You just refer to economics as a science, which is like to put that.
The dismal science. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes, I have heard that.
Yes,
expression
it's a
before,
science.
Yes, it is a science, but I think the real point is here is that the 999 plan is very ill thought out, and most economists think
Okay,
that
that's
there's no
your
basis
opinion.
in reality.
I think Virginia needs to create jobs, and
What is
in
this
one
Tea
respect,
Party or logic that
Mr.
you were using,
Sagstetter
boy?
is not a serious candidate. I'm
Mr.
wherever he is,
Mr.
he's not a serious
Wag.
candidate.
Mr. Wag.
But I do believe that he offers an innovative solution on this topic. Well, I think we've concluded for the day. So I thank you for your attention. I hope you'll tune back into BTI and other Fox News programming.
Thank you for tuning in,
And I'd like
ladies and
to
gentlemen.
thank the Bob for being on our show. It was excellent. All right. So long, America.